This video is brought to you by Nokian Tires, a leader in safety and sustainability. Maximize performance and efficiency with their made in USA all-season tires and their dedicated Hakkapeliitta EV winter line from the inventor of the winter tire. Learn more at nokiantire.com/EV. This video is also brought to you by Magna, forward for all.
Hey, welcome back to Out of Spec. Welcome to beautiful Santa Monica, and welcome to Polestar Day. I'm Jordan, this is Tollak. We don't really know what Polestar Day is, so how about we find out? So Tollak, we are here at some airport, Santa Monica Airport, I think, or one of the smaller ones, and they have some huge hangar that they've taken over for Polestar Day. This is the inaugural Polestar Day. So we don't actually know what to expect necessarily, and that's okay. This is the first of hopefully many. I guess they'll see how it goes. But what basically Polestar Day is showing off ideas, creations, both confirmed and still in the works, to investors and potential candidates for partnership and for us press. So I don't know. There's a lot to take in here. What do you know so far? What do we have going on over here? Some sort of drive situation?
Yeah, it looks like they've already started the drives of the Polestar 3 and the 4, and I'm excited to try both of them out.
Yeah, so unfortunately they're not drives, but they're ride-alongs. So we do get to experience the cars. We get to be inside them, see maybe some of the NVH and how it feels in either the passenger or rear seats. So yeah, we'll be checking out the Polestar 3, the Polestar 4, and inside the hangar are a bunch of exhibits. We'll have the whole lineup essentially. Actually, not a Polestar 1 or 2, interestingly, but that's fine. Those are old news. Let's go take a walk around. So again, this is Polestar Day, and this kind of shows us more of the brand itself. We're very curious to see what Polestar is beyond just the cars that exist, which at the moment is really just Polestar 2. Obviously, Kyle has his Polestar 1, which I love. But now they've gone full electrification, as you know. And behind us, we have this huge kind of exhibit hall of things they're working on. So I don't know, Tollak, what's your impression of Polestar so far?
Well, this definitely feels like they're showing off the entire brand, not just, like we said, the one car, but as we see on the screen right there real quick, that's a design collaboration in the design community. So it's showing off design, their charging tech, their autonomous goals, just the whole package.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of things happening here. So we're going to give you a quick tour of this entire exhibit, just so you can kind of experience Polestar Day with us. Unfortunately, it's not it's not a full in-depth review on one car per se. They're just showing us a ton of stuff. It's like an Apple keynote of some sorts. In fact, that's what we just saw a little bit ago. We saw the CEO and a bunch of other personnel giving talks on the stage, explaining what they're working on, and it was so much information to take in. It was like an hour long of like really beautiful slides, and they have these huge screens that you could see up there, and it's very impressively put on show. Although what's funny enough is the Polestar 4 way over there, the lights kind of went out during the show. I'm not sure why, but this is all pre-production, this is all concept. So over here, first up, some of the merch. They're just having random merch here, which we could buy, I guess, for probably a lot of money. $145 sweatshirt, but it's probably a really good sweatshirt. Tote bags. This bike is a partnership with Ale Bike. This bike is a partnership with Cake, which we all love. Or at least I think Cake is really cool. Very utilitarian purposed. And I love their design language and ethos and everything. Over here, we have the lineup of vehicles, and they really did bring everything, except for the 1 and 2, like we said. But we got transported here in Polestar 2s, at least the journalists that were staying in the hotels, being transferred in from Europe and the US. So I guess to back up, this is 400 plus journalists all around the world. Some of us, like Tollak, are local, and others are local-ish. It's LA, so it still took you probably, 2 hours to get here? Oh
my goodness, I had a lot of traffic today getting here.
Some traffic. But right here behind me is my favorite car in the world. This is the Polestar. It will be the Polestar 6. It's actually the Polestar Roadster concept, initially introduced as the Polestar 02 concept. Can we just talk about their naming for a second? They're doing it numerically. So we have Polestar 1. Right now we have Polestar 2. Next up is Polestar 3. Next up is Polestar 4. It's really easy to keep track of that way. What's confusing is Polestar 1 was really expensive. Polestar 2 is a bit more cheaper, I don't know, sedan, electric sedan, the introductory to their mass market appeal. Then Polestar 3 is a bigger SUV, but then Polestar 4 actually fits between Polestar 2 and Polestar 3 size-wise and price-wise. So you just can't really match up the numbers with any sort of system. You can't say like, okay, Tesla Model 3, Polestar 3,
Right.
these threes are not the same. They should not be cross-compared or cross-shopped, but that's what we get for...
Even with other brands like BMW and all that, the naming,
Yeah.
they kind of get bigger as they get,
It's kind of confusing. The 4 Series is like smaller than the 3 Series as far as like the coupe versus sedan. Whatever. We're going to gloss over that for now and just look at the cars they actually have. So Polestar Roadster, which will be Polestar 6 eventually. Really curious how close they'll keep to the design because I'm obsessed with this thing. This is peak me. You all know I love convertibles. Like my favorite EV on the road right now is the Tesla Roadster, which was sold like 15 years ago. So it doesn't even work half the time. But this thing is stunning. At least they unveiled it as the O2 concept with like a drone that flew off the top of it. That's not going to actually happen. And so I'm curious how much actually comes just like this. You can even tell it has the like digital rearview mirrors, which currently don't comply with FMVSS safety standards in the States, but that could be what it looks like in Europe. We'll see. This right here is the Polestar 5, which is kind of the invigoration of what was the Precept concept. So this is like their luxury sedan. Think Model S competitor, Lucid Air competitor. I think it looks better than any of those. Lucid has good angles, don't get me wrong. And even some of the like angled front end does give me a little bit of Lucid vibes, but then the Lucid completely falls apart in the rear end for me. Whereas this looks phenomenal. Front, rear, doesn't really matter. They do have the all very split, iconic Thor's hammer tail lights or headlights, and some of them are less split than others, like Polestar 3 is pretty much all together. But Polestar 4, Polestar 5, the 6 thing, it'll have those like really split design. We'll skip over here to the 4. This and the 3, which are kind of shown together, are the bigger pieces of this puzzle for this weekend. It's like a lot of the focus is on these things. The Polestar 4, which we'll go on rides in a little bit here, is their coupe SUV. So these are like a pair of SUVs essentially being brought to market. Somehow the Polestar 4 is actually skipping the 3 in some markets as far as like when it's actually coming. Like it's going to start being built next week as of the time we're recording this. So built in China and possibly other factories, but it's their coupe SUV. And the way they've tried to make the interior better is by compromising in a way that is somewhat controversial, and that's removing the rear window entirely. So there's going to be a digital rearview mirror. I'm curious what you guys think. That's a hotly debated topic. Even here, we're hearing journalists being like, what do you mean? That's so dumb. And other journalists are like, that's brilliant. So leave a comment on your thoughts on a digital rearview mirror. We'll see you down there to debate. Tollak, what are your thoughts?
Well, I kind of like the way that they showed it off was that when you have a small window in the back, like with my Tesla Model Y, you have this kind of narrow viewpoint out there, but they pointed out that your mirror is picking up basically just your back seat as opposed to the outside. So with the camera, you're actually getting a wider view all the time.
That makes sense, yeah. So on paper, I really do think it makes sense. And people are like, oh, like, is that even legal? Well, yes, it's legal. We have, box vans that don't have rear glass at all. So it's not like it's a new thing. And I'm intrigued. I can't wait to try it out. We'll of course try it on the ride along, but I think Polestar 4 looks really good. They kind of lowered the hood line. We can walk over here and see if we can get a better view. Obviously, this is where kind of everyone's hanging out because it's a big deal. But the hood line is kind of a bit lower down and it's kind of stretched, so it almost looks sedan-like, which does remind me a little bit of the Polestar 2. So when the Polestar 2 came out, it's like, wait, is it a sedan? Is it a CUV? So they are marketing this as an SUV itself, which is fine. And the nose, I think it's kind of sharp. We don't actually have the what do you call it? The safety zone thing on the Polestar 3. This is a bit cleaner approach. You have the radar way down here, the front camera, of course, lots of cameras on the dash. There's a whole lot of things happening with this. So I think it's a pretty gorgeous car. And the dash itself has a landscape display, finally. I think that is a better implementation than the actual Polestar 3 display, or even Polestar 2. They're fine, those are just fine, but this is a better implementation if you ask me. Of course, with the removal of the rear window, we also have the glass that kind of extends further back above the rear occupant's head, which I think is a good deal. We can move on for now to the Polestar 3 because we'll be seeing more of this later. This is the Polestar 3, which is my thing that I'm really excited about here. Boxy, gorgeous design, kind of like the lifted wagon, almost Subaru Outback-esque, but looks infinitely better than a Subaru Outback in every way. This thing has my heart in so many methodologies. The interior, really cool, really nice, sustainable, interesting feeling things. Kyle did do a walk around in this car, so you can go watch that to get a really in-depth look. Here's the kind of smart zone I was talking about earlier. I couldn't think of the name. They have a special name for everything. One thing I love about Polestar is they do actually just show off all the things happening. They're not trying to hide it. So this is an actual smart zone, and I can hear the air suspension like kicking on. They even show like where the radar is, and these are all heat elements to like keep it thawed out during the winter. Of course, being Scandinavian, they do think about winter. Thank you, Polestar. As a Coloradoan, I'm appreciative of that. And they just show the sensor clusters, the camera, like they're not trying to weirdly hide any of that, which I appreciate. A lot of cars do hide it, and it's just awkward because it's just like an obvious ugly piece of sensor there. So this thing has really cool arrow blades in the front and rear, just like the Jaguar I-Pace, which is an interesting comparison. And this car has like Dolby Atmos sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. Interestingly, the Polestar 4 doesn't currently have Dolby Atmos. I don't know why. As a audio enthusiast like myself, I wish everything had Bowers & Wilkins and Dolby Atmos. Because the Harman Kardon comes in the Polestar 4, kind of like the Polestar 2. It sounds good. Well, I haven't actually heard the Polestar 4 version 1 yet, but the Polestar 2 audio system premium one sounds good, but I just could never get it like quite dialed into my taste. So if you have recommendations, let me know, but I really have tried kind of everything. But I think this looks fantastic. You can see the like split Thor's hammer basically meeting in the middle, unlike all their other cars where they're starting to actually fully split it off. So I don't know, do you guys have a preference on this? I just love all of their designs. So you can see this really thin split right there, whereas all the rest of them are kind of like moved apart like that.
It's funny, the frame rate on the video kind of looks like a flux capacitor.
Oh yeah, the crazy, the frame rate doesn't quite match the refresh rate of the LEDs. That's how that happens. If you're ever filming with your smartphone, you're like, why is it flashing? It's because there's like weirdly mismatched frame rates. Now, we've gone through the lineup of 6, 5, 4, 3. We're going to look at some of their other stuff. There's a few kind of booths here that we'll try to get some time in possibly and talk about. But as a quick overglance, we have the Precept Concept, which is really cool, really interesting, like carbon kind of based materials on the inside. They're really trying to show off the way that you can like elegantly light up this interior. Very, very, very interesting. This is such a nice place to be. This is like executive seating at all four corners, which doesn't always happen. Of course, it's easier to happen in concepts, but this is kind of the material they're talking about where they can, it's like a carbon fiber type situation, but like backlit, it shows the interesting, unique fibers.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of like proper interior lighting, which doesn't always happen very well. But we kind of take what we can get. I really, really like this thing a lot. Now that we're over here, I can actually point out really quickly, on the top of the Polestar 3 is a LiDAR situation. And that is done in conjunction with Luminar. So LiDAR is something they are leaning into, whereas you have some others like Tesla saying, nope, we're going vision-based, we don't even need all these sensors. And then Polestar is like, actually, we could use all the sensors and just have levels of redundancy, and what they say is levels of autonomous driving that can't really be done without it. So it's interesting to have two companies passionately saying we can do autonomous driving without doing the same way. Like Tesla's like, we don't need LiDAR, it's silly. And Polestar's like, actually, LiDAR unlocks a lot of useful features. I'm gonna lean, and all you Tesla lovers might hate this, but I'm gonna say Tesla's not doing it right with only vision, because, I mean, I've driven Teslas where suddenly something blocks the camera. And it's not your fault, it's not even the car's fault, it's just exterior debris, rain, dirt. Like, there's sensors that can override those weaknesses and those limitations. So I think I lean that direction a little bit. We can keep going down the line here though. What do you think of the Precept?
I mean, I think it looks gorgeous. Definitely looks comfortable. But of course, like many of the concepts, you know, we're not going to have this door structure.
Yeah.
You know, but it definitely is good proof of concept. And they did talk a lot about how this particular design had a lot of throughput to the Polestar 5.
Yeah.
So a lot of the lines are ending up on the 5. You know, a lot of concept vehicles don't get close to what, or the production doesn't get close to what concept says.
Yeah, and I appreciate Polestar's focus on that because it is true. That's one reason why Kyle's frustrated with concepts so much, is that they just don't always happen. I don't agree with Kyle's frustration with concepts. Actually, that would be a great podcast debate someday, because I like the vision they kind of unlock, which leads to a lot of production things. Something I want to point out here that's really cool on some of these cars here today is this charging status. So presumably this would light up and gradually fill, I don't know, that direction or that direction when it's being charged. I think that's pretty sweet. Lots of little subtle nuanced details that I really like. They're blade taillights, of course. I mean, nowadays it feels like every EV is doing that, so maybe it's no longer that special. Right here though, behind us, we do have the, what is this, the Polestar 5? So another one just like we saw earlier on the stage, but this is actually showing some of the technology, the radar, all the different sensors that are helping unlock the capabilities of the Polestar. Oh, sorry, this is a Polestar 4 again. Yeah. Wow, this is fascinating.
Like doing an Iron Man scan of the car here.
Very Iron Man. Actually, that's kind of why I like the little roadster thing. It reminds me of the R8 that Iron Man drove. So maybe that's what I'm intrigued by. Side view camera shows the top view, the front view. Just a lot of cameras. I don't remember how many they said, maybe 12 or something like that. Do you like the side view camera, how they implemented that there? I don't know if
It definitely attracts attention. Let me see if I can show how much it sticks out here.
It's not crazy, but it's like, you got one here and one here. Oh, those actually might be ultrasonic sensors. It's hard to tell when they're black.
I wonder if on different colors it'd be less noticeable.
They are all cameras actually, so yeah. It does have a cool like geometric shadow, which I'm sure might be intentional.
They definitely put some thought into the whole day.
Yeah. Right over here. So they talk a lot about Mobileye and Luminar, which are both like working in conjunction with Polestar. Here's kind of a close-up on the Polestar 4 back end. That one's a little bit crowded, so we couldn't see it, but here's the missing rear window. This is all black, it's not actually glass, but you can see where the glass actually goes to up there. 2 rear view cameras in full HD, as they say. I actually wonder what the exact resolution would be, and I'm guessing they're maybe partnering those cameras together to give you the full wide angle view, which is nice. And yeah, there is truth that the fact that the camera will show you more than what your mirror would. But then it's like, well, what if something happens to the camera? I guess you don't need them to drive per se, but it's not always ideal. But it's an interesting back end. It's an interesting design choice too to have this remain. I actually wonder if anyone's gonna wrap that black.
I don't know.
Then it would look kind of
sort of like the nose cone on the first Model S.
No, yeah, who wrapped their nose cone on your old Model S? So this is the Polestar Synergy Concept, which is, again, a concept car, but it looks freaking sick. And it's single seat, middle seat, which I've always wanted to try driving a car that way. Kind of Formula One-esque. Very aerodynamic, very cool, like tri-design wheels, which I'm a fan of. But I don't know. This was, what was it called? The Polestar Design Community?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a design practice. They have a whole community on Instagram. I guess you can maybe explain that better, Tollak.
So for a while on Instagram, they've had a whole design community where they share designs, and they actually had a contest. And I think there was three. I think their names are on here.
Yeah, 3 designers that actually worked together on this, and they decided to actually make it a reality. A bit of an augmented reality situation that goes in front of your face. It's very, very concept-y. But even what's cool here is like the rear blade is actually like arrow, and it can actually like move up and down, and then the wing can come up and then spread out. So interesting. Obviously the function is maybe a bit questionable, but I don't really care. This is really cool to me. And I think I like it maybe just as much as I like the Ford GT90 concept from back in the 90s. It reminds me of that just a little bit. Maybe it's because it's shown off in white. Everything here is pretty much white, which is not as exciting as a color scheme. I kind of wish there was more color here. This is a bit more exciting. This is like their advanced like prototype development car for the Precept / Polestar 5 sedan. So you might have seen this in videos at like the Goodwood Festival. They've used a lot of benchmarking on this thing. Of course, it's in kind of camo, and you can kind of see the lights are like partially blocked off. So it does look a little subtle and nuanced. You're like not positive what it is. Obviously here next to the Polestar 5, we can tell exactly what it is. But I think it's pretty cool. It's cool that they're just very transparent about their development and product research, and they're not trying to pretend like they've got everything figured out. They're just always, working on it. So just wrapped up lunch. Looks like they kind of have a grouping of food trucks, which is pretty cool. We had a really good, life hack. We skipped the lines by going to the vegan one. Kyle would never. Kyle would rather die.
Yeah.
But really good mushroom bao bun type thing. And you had some non-spam musubi and some noodles. It was all fantastic.
Yeah, noodles were tasty.
Yeah, really good food. I mean, it's LA, so really, really good food trucks. Yeah, but we're gonna head back into the hangar and check out a couple more of the booths. And then we're going to get to our first drive events, which are, well, first ride, I guess. Not really driving, but the line is a little intimidating. So maybe they're all in line and we can actually go see the booths with no one there. We'll find out. All right, we're back inside the darkness, and they have a few things for sale as well. You know, we saw the hoodies over there. There's also these little tiny scale model cars, including Max's little Polestar 2, same exact spec, color, everything, and Kyle's Polestar 1 over here. So, fun little toys. $83 though. It's a bit much. Water bottles, hats. I'm a big hat guy. Maybe I'll look at those at some point. Journals, which is cool. And we're gonna head to this booth over here, which is some of the sustainable material focus. They have a couple of booths talking about this stuff, but this is where they talk about their steel, basically carbon-free automotive seats. Here's a couple like blocks of actual fossil-free steel, which is pretty cool. Talks all about all the metrics on those. There's a lot to like get in here, and actually I think we're gonna do like a podcast discussion on some of this stuff to get more in-depth and more nerdy for you guys. There's also all the recycled materials in the seats and things over here. It goes into like different rubber and structures like that. So pretty fascinating use of plants and other natural materials, trying to make it less, I guess, effective on some of the more carbon oil-based typical situations. And I know they use pine oil in like their seats for the Polestar 3. This is pretty cool. This is like a skateboard actually. Built out of a sort of a wood. It's like paper, it's called paper shell, and they actually use wood and carbon-free components, and there's a lot to get into with this, but all this to kind of say it's all like carbon neutral, and they're trying to focus on their Polestar Zero idea, which means going carbon-free or a carbon neutral car by 2030. They didn't say the whole fleet or company like Apple or some of those other guys, but that's still really impressive. A completely carbon neutral car if they reach their goal in 7 years. I don't know why I looked at my watch. In 7 years. So we'll see if that actually works. And now we're gonna jump over to the other booth where they talk about the carbon neutral seat material. The other part of their sustainable components is some of the seat and even like architecture pieces of the car. These are actually really cool pieces, super like fine, almost hair-like substances. You can kind of see, you know, we saw that earlier on the Precept right behind Tollak actually, and that really cool concept car, which is sort of coming to market, but what's actually for sure coming to market are some of these seat components, and not seat, you know, interior components. We already looked at the seats. This is just other pieces. It's like to make a carbon neutral car, you have to look at every single component, not just the seats. We've seen unique seats before. I mean, the Mazda MX-30, for example, had really cool kind of denim seats with like a cork piece on the dashboard, but that was it. Whereas this is the part you don't even think about looking at. It's just like somewhere near the floor, I guess. And so I think it's pretty cool to see that. And then there's this type of carbon fiber weave of some sort. It's actually not carbon, which is the whole point. It looks like what we would say carbon fiber. Every time we see a weave like this, we think carbon fiber, but the whole intent is to make it aware that it's like non-carbon. So this is pretty cool. So Polestar is working on this with a company called B-Comp. And so natural fibers, it's cool that they're not doing everything completely in-house. I think that's actually kind of smart. They're finding other industry experts, like we're seeing with the LiDAR and stuff with Luminar and with Mobileye. They're not trying to just redesign the wheel, to overuse that phrase. So, you know, things on the Precept have all this like natural fiber situation and the LiDAR. It's really a culmination of all these ideas working in conjunction, which I think is kind of brilliant. So they're not trying to, like I said, reinvent the wheel. They're just trying to take a lot of unique solutions, throw them all into one idea, which is the point of a concept car, Kyle, and prove that these do actually work. Now, whether they ramp up perfectly, that's not entirely known yet, but they gotta start somewhere, right? V2G, or Vehicle to Grid. This is their Vehicle to Grid booth, explaining the technology. This is kind of a funny rudimentary thing. It's just like a little cityscape, and these buttons just like turn off and on silly lights underneath parts of the streets, but it's trying to mention what Vehicle to Grid actually is. So in a car's sake, the reasoning they're putting to this is that a car sits still for 90% of the time. It's not like actually working for you. So why not make it actual useful battery storage? So in the sense of a vehicle to grid situation at home, you'd have your car parked, plugged into your house in some sort of bi-directional capability, kind of like what we've seen with the F-150 Lightning. This would actually allow the car to act as a temporary storage situation, which would be great for people, especially with solar, where they can charge, it'll charge into the car, and then you can go drive the car. You can have a schedule set in your app. It's all done through some sort of app functionality. This is something they're still working on building, but this is one of the ideas that they wanted to mention that they're making strides on. They're currently doing studies in California, studies in Europe, on how to actually implement it properly. But they've talked about some of the solutions, such as having some sort of bi-directional charging system at home, probably something that would charge your car and then have your car charge your house. I guess power your house, not really charging your house, but taking solar or even taking energy from the grid during a cheap point of electricity and then storing it in the car for use later on. So like I said, you can schedule your car's drives and such like that. They're showing maybe what that station might look like over here. So bi-directional charging. They had some acronym for this. I don't remember. They're not showing any screens right now. They have an acronym for everything, but it's just your typical J1772 connector that would charge your car, but supposedly allow reverse charging the same way. So that'd be interesting, and I think it's actually kind of brilliant. Not enough companies are actually focusing on vehicle to grid when I think they should be thinking about that, because that's kind of one of the challenges with going electric. Everyone's like, what about the grid? It's all going to collapse. Not if we look at this solution and, well, look at the problem and try to figure out a solution, which they're trying to do now. So one more booth we're looking at is this one, which is kind of all about charging or fast charging or super fast charging. XFC is what they're calling it, extreme fast charging. There's too many acronyms at this point. But this is another joint venture that they've done with, what's it called? StoreDot. Yeah, so it's another company that's kind of creating another synergy between Polestar and another company who knows what they're doing. Some companies, like we said, do things in-house, whereas StoreDot has so much expertise with charging batteries, fast charging batteries, and they're developing more and more battery technologies, even with like semi-solid state kind of down the line. Actually, the CEO told me that he doesn't necessarily see solid state as being something for a long time. So the natural next progression would be semi-solid state. But they have a technology they talk about with called 105, where it's 100 miles worth of range in 5 minutes, which is really impressive. And they're further fine-tuning that, so their next goal is going to be 104 and then 103. That's like effectively a full charge vehicle, or maybe not full charge because of the taper off the top of the pack, but a substantial amount of charge, the road trippable amount of charge in like 10 minutes, which is huge, or even less. I mean, we'll get to that point where people won't even say that comparison between filling up with gas and filling up with electric cars. We're getting there, and maybe a little bit down the line, but they're using this as kind of an example case. This is the Polestar 5, which we kind of saw earlier. It's right there as well. The Polestar 5 is really interesting because this is probably their first 800 volt architecture car. So much faster charging capabilities with that architecture. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of unfolds in the future. They didn't quite have a car ready by this point to actually show the charging on. They just had a little demo over there, which I can show you the footage of, where they charged a example cell to 84% in 10 minutes, explaining that that's how the car could operate. 84% state of charge in 10 minutes. It's amazing. Not really any other cars can do that right now, but I think we're getting to that point. So another cool booth with another cool partnership. So we just went on our first initial quick rides. There wasn't even really much of a filming opportunity per se, but we got a few clips here and there. They were playing music and talking to us, so it was fine. But we can at least talk about our thoughts afterwards, because we rode in both the 3 and the Polestar 4. So what'd you think? We started with the 3, so we went in numerical order, sort of. Like we went to the 3, then the 4, but price-wise, we did it backwards. Yeah. Again, with the naming convention.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was some sort of cohesion with SUV versus more car or whatever, the same. But in terms of the 3, you can definitely tell you were sitting up higher. The back seats are different. They're not exactly the same seat in a different platform. The 3, you definitely feel a bit more of this. I felt like the 3 had a softer ride than the 4, though.
Yeah, so I think they both have air suspension as standard, but the 3 was a bit taller. You have just a bit more of a wafty feel. It is the SUV. They're both SUVs, but
Yeah.
the 3 is like a more traditional SUV in a sense, whereas the 4 is almost like Identity Crisis. It's kind of sedan, kind of SUV, but SUV coupe if it is an SUV, and the no rear window thing was definitely different.
Yeah.
But I thought it was okay. So yeah, we'll keep with the 3 for now. Back seats, very spacious, honestly, for both cars. But we sat in the back.
Plenty of legroom for sure.
We sat in the back in the 3. Dolby Atmos was not enabled on this car, which just kills me a little bit. But still, just sounds phenomenal. And I mean, a note about Dolby Atmos. If the music is produced in Dolby Atmos, it will play as Dolby Atmos. Otherwise, it's just going to play as normal, which is still fantastic because Bowers & Wilkins is fantastic. But in the 4, the Harman Kardon was fantastic. Honestly, no real complaints. Our 4 was spec'd with the headrest speaker, so I did sit in the front on the Polestar 4.
And you messed with the surround settings.
Messed with the surround settings, which add the headrest speaker effects, so that's like 16 speakers of the Harman Kardon sound system. Still great. Also a great ride. It was comfortable both ways. You were in the back, like lounging in the 4.
For me, I like the back seat of the 4 a little bit better. Even sitting upright more, it just felt more like, not quite limo status, but it definitely felt like, I would order this for a night out on the town.
Yeah, slightly executive. If you order an Uber Black and a Polestar 4 comes up, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
So I think both great rides. The NVH was fantastic. They keep iterating this, pre-production cars. But most things worked. The 4 had the cool electrochromatic roof. It was permanently on because I couldn't turn it off.
I wanted to get those palm tree shots.
No, but it's okay. It was cool to see it on because the static cars inside, it was permanently off. Like, they don't have that switch enabled or even built yet. I don't know.
With it on, it's actually kind of nice you still get some light at this time of day where the light is penetrating, but it's not direct sunlight like right now in my face.
Yeah. So it's cool. I think every car with a glass roof should have electrochromatic. Like you said, even for heat sometimes, and for sun. Like, obviously they're tinted regardless, but it is a nice feature to have.
Yeah. Even with it on, there's still the Polestar logo there.
Yeah. So yeah, very just nice interiors, nice exteriors. They're nice to look at. They're nice to sit in. I had in the 4, I sat up front, had the massaging seat on and the air conditioned seat. I feel like the 4 not having those in the rear is a big miss. You do have rear heated seats and you have lounging capability kind of, but like, come on, you're already almost that close to executive. Just throw the same seats in the front and the rear, sort of, and just. Yeah.
Driving in the summer in a sunny state like this, I would use the ventilated seats more than heated seats.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much it. We're kind of watching the sun gradually set over Santa Monica. It's beautiful out here. I'm jealous that you have this weather. I left snow in Colorado to get out here.
It's actually slightly better in San Diego.
Okay, well, whatever. Yeah, sorry you have to deal with this Santa Monica crap.
No, it was nice being here at the Santa Monica airport,
Yeah, we're kind of wrapping up next to Polestar Day stuff. This was the last thing we did, which I think was good. Just like finishing the day, sitting, relaxing, being chauffeured around. We didn't get to use the actual chauffeur features, like all the ADAS stuff wasn't fully functional yet. These are pre-production prototypes, early. I mean, that's why this didn't even deserve its own video per se, like the ride along. Like, we will do so much filming with these cars when we actually have them in their production variants in our hands out of spec. So what's your final thoughts on this whole event?
Well, one thing that's definitely very clear from Polestar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe who knows, eventually 7, 8 at some point.
Keep going. Like Fast and Furious. Just
and one of the drivers actually pointed this out, is that there's a definite design language through the entire company. And even through the Polestar design community on Instagram, you can see that there's definitely an aesthetic to Polestar that is unique. It's sort of like Volvo, but just a little bit more Scandinavian, with a little bit more through line and thought through every little detail.
It's Volvo with a bit more of an edge, and I like that edge. I mean, even the Thor's hammer being more accentuated. Like, Volvo has Thor's hammer too, but not like. Don't ask me to do that sound effect again. But yeah, really fun review. Oh, we can grab our stuff here. And fun day, fun to see all these vehicles. I'm so glad I finally got to see the O2 concept, the Roadster concept, the Polestar 6, whatever the heck they're calling it now.
That is going to be a fun drive.
Oh, that's the dream car right there. But it was cool to see them all lined up together. Ironically, not a Polestar 1 and 2 to line up with them, because that would have been really epic. But we had Polestar 2s out here. They're doing drive opportunities there. Max has already driven that in a recent video, so go check that out. But yeah, we're just, they had food trucks, coffee trucks, drinking some matcha here, and you got your little...
Not a bad day.
Not a bad day. But yeah, cool to see the executives meet some of the Polestar team, the engineers, getting to talk to them about what they're passionate about. Everyone who works for Polestar seems to be very passionate about what they do, which I think is why they partially had this event. I mean, they want to show off their passion. It's not just cars on a pedestal being look at us. It's like bringing everything together all at once. So,
and going back to the design, the through line is also sustainability. So they talk a lot about the materials in and outside of the car being sourced from either recycled materials or sustainable. And that's really refreshing to see as well. And that kind of makes sense why they have it here in Santa Monica, which this city is very conscious about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things they tried to portray with this, not just, oh, here's the car, but it's like how the cars are built, how sustainable they are, their goals with future-proofing sustainability. I mean, having carbon neutral car come to market by 2030, partnering with all these companies like Luminar and Mobileye and B-Comp and the battery charging, the XFC, super fast charging, whatever.
That will be amazing if we see that in real world applications.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here that are very conceptual, but they're coming to market. I mean, the fact that that's a car coming to market, that's not the concept car, that's a real car, means I have high hopes for Polestar, I think, as a company. So let us know what you guys think of this event. Do you want to see another one next year? I mean, this is the inaugural one, so the first one. But I really do like it. I like seeing companies kind of outside just the cars. I mean, Rivian's doing their hubs situations around the country and maybe around the world eventually. Polestar, doing days like this. Maybe other companies might do more of these types of events where they're talking about not just the car itself, but the kind of culture surrounding it. So let us know what you guys think, and we're gonna go chill in Santa Monica.
See you next time.
Whatever you try, enjoy the ride.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, shit.